Welcome back to the seventh grade mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about the domicile and what that entails. The domicile is a place that you dwell. It is a residence. It is something that can extend outside of the four walls that you live in, depending on your mindset and the location. It goes back into time.
Don't remember, it's mental and physical. When you think of domicile, the first thing that pops into mind is where you live, but that mental space is directly related to your physical occupation.
So let's go back into time and into the earliest ages of man when the first structures were built. And these first structures were shelter from the elements, shelter from animals and nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is in that environment that people began to develop ideas and concepts of what a dwelling is and how it applies to your state of mind and your state of security and your sense of self. Because back in those times, in ancient times, depending on the materials that you had available, you either lived in a hut, which you took the earth, you took dirt, and you mixed it with water, and you made a rammed earth home, or you lived in a cave, if that was accessible. But I mean, in the savanna of Africa, the wide open plain, you really didn't have any caves. So people there just used the ingredients around them, or the materials around them, trees, leaves, dirt, to make a home. And in doing so, hang on a second, but in doing so, man shielded himself against the elements because he didn't want to be rained on, and he didn't want, tigers and creatures just picking off his family while they were sleeping.
So that's why the security portion of this is so important and so big. When you have your own place, there are things that go with that. We had a couple episodes about defending and things like that. Your residence, you hear people say stuff, but it's a concept. Some words don't have meaning until you experience it. But when you own your home and somebody tries to come on your property and tell you to do some shit, or when somebody breaks in, or you have to defend, a lot of times I think Black people in general, when you don't own your place, when you just rent or you live with somebody, you don't have the same fervor for the whole idea of protecting your property. So when you see these people, they pull guns on the protesters, which they were wrong for doing that. At the same time, if those protesters had been coming on their property, had been attacking them, they would have been well within their rights because they're defending their home. I think the reason that a lot of Black folks don't defend their home is because we don't have a home.
Well, hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. It depends, man. Like you're making a generalization because hold on. Because Black people who live in the country on land, they're very clear about what their home is. Yeah. So it depends on your location, as we said at the beginning of the show.
But that's the whole point right there. When you actually own where you live and this is yours and you can defend it, it means something to you. But when you've been relocated to a city or even a country that here's the other thing, we've had conversations about who are the actual Native Americans. There are Black folks that were here for a very long time. And the whole narrative that slavery is the only reason you're here is not true. Many Black folks were already here. The whole idea, here's the question that nobody ever wants to ask. If these Native American tribes had slaves, if they weren't growing cotton and they weren't doing shit, what the hell they need slaves for? Remember, this whole idea of slavery is to do certain manual labor. Native Americans are known for doing their own labor. So a lot of that narrative that, the Cherokees own slaves, which they did own slaves, but why? So no one's asking that question. The idea that you're Black and Native American, there's always an excuse. There's never the truth of the matter that you may have already been here. So what I'm saying is, if you're part of this country, if you're part of this land, then you're going to put up a fight when somebody comes at you wrong. And we also talk about this a lot. You don't hear the stories about the guys that fought hard or the Black people that took over, and those stories exist. But the point is, when you have a connection to the land or the place where you dwell, have a real connection, you whoop ass over that shit. You will fight over it.
So here's the thing. When you put people into government housing, the projects, they don't feel like they own anything.
They'll never own it. Yeah.
But see, the adults know that. But the younger people, they are quick to say, this is my block, this is my set, this is my hood,
Yeah.
I control this. That need to control an area is
Of
ancient.
land.
Is
Yes,
ancient.
yes.
That person
Territorial.
doesn't realize they're being territorial based on epigenetics, things that are coded in their DNA. It is actually your human right, or it's human nature, I should say, to behave that way, to be territorial.
Hey, look, let's just run down around the shitty road already because that's how it goes. Look, here's what I'm saying: when people don't own the property, when you sit here and we try to warn you about socialism and communism and all these isms, in those societies, you never own the property. So so since you don't own it, when the government tells you to do something, you fall for that shit. You know what I'm saying? So, but fast forward to now where you got people living at home with their parents they're 30, 40 years old and I can't afford a house. I'm not even going to try. I don't think I want a family. We used to read about this shit over in Japan in these Asian nations where you had 27, 37-year-old kids still living with their parents. That person right there is entitled. They don't mind living with somebody. They don't care about being embarrassed. They don't care about sex. They don't care about you giving them certain rules here and there. That's a mental thing that transfers over here when you got, like I said, right now I'm living in an apartment. I ain't digging it. This ain't me.
All right, so hold on. Let's talk about that for a second then, because apartment living really sucks. It sucks butthole. But
see, that's
but hang on.
Younger, it don't bother you. It don't bother you.
Yes,
when you're younger.
but see, when you're younger, you have a very high threshold for other people's bullshit when it comes to your neighbors. And so, but here's the thing: we're going to talk about the outside first, because your neighbors will do all types of things to annoy you, and if you're alone and you're young, it's not that big of a deal. But somebody blasting their music loud as hell with no awareness or no consideration about the spaces and domiciles around them, well, that person needs to be taught a lesson in humility and awareness. But that comes through arguments and confrontation. But I also want to say that inside the domicile, you have smaller domiciles, which is called your room. And if you've ever had roommates, you will understand that people will guard your space no matter how small it is, because they have to feel like that they have control over something in their life that is where they lay their head, where they make love, where they make music.
You see homeless people fight over a box, and you're like, that doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense. And so when the government does little shit to take away your idea of what's yours or to minimize that, then here's the deal. You're saying some deep shit, so let's put it in perspective because people don't always get it. There's levels to this shit. So you're 18, 17, 18, you move out. So say you go to college, you get a dorm. Say that you move out, you get your first apartment. There's levels to this. So now you have a place, and you're just happy to have a place. You're paying bills, and it's in your name. You're not relying on your parents. So that's the start. So people who start out that way early, going from a dorm to maybe getting an apartment to getting their own house, or going from home, own apartment, getting their own house, or staying with a relative for a while, earning. But it's your place. You're paying a little bit of money. It's your place. You're working your way up. Now you go higher up the food chain, and you see, okay, I want a house. I get a small house, and I stay there. Now the next step is hopefully you in 20 years you buy either you buy another house, you sell this house, you upgrade, or you buy some land in the country and you start preparing for your retirement. There's levels, and that's how it works. Same thing when you first start working a job. You get you a paper route, you work fast food, then all of a sudden you get either a factory job, corporate America, or you start your own business. There's always been levels, and you're supposed to work your way up. And as you work your way up, you get stronger, and your emotions are much more attached to the system, the way things work. Now they fuck that all up. They tell you that working for corporate America is the only way to go, and don't start a business. Look what happened with COVID. Shit, if you were a small business owner under COVID, you're fucked. Or they convince you that you don't need to have a place. You can have a fucking perfect apartment / townhouse / condo. Never own the motherfucker, or if you do own it, you ain't got to cut grass or do no work involved with it. You just stay there, and it's your space, but it'll never grow, and you'll never. If you had to defend that, if you ever had to get in a situation where it's some zombie ass shit, could you. And so there's no money involved. You can never actually have any wealth off that unless you were to rent that out. It's a way of fucking with you, and you don't realize you're being fucked with. And the thing is, since you see these images on television, remember when you used to watch Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous? They would talk about yachts and acres and big ass houses. Now they talk about this is a $3 million condominium. All that is a major apartment, and so
Right, but see, that's part of the problem. People
yes,
that
yes.
buy that stuff, most of them that buy that stuff are looking to maintain a level of comfort that exists inside of an image of success. And that success is determined by the freedom that they have. But
Well, see, freedom is what these people are
okay,
missing.
but hang on.
Well,
Let me finish my point. So these people who, as you say, most of them aren't business owners, exist within this structure of playing this quote unquote game. And they feel like they play the game the right way and they're within the bounds of the law. They can do things, or depending on the personality type, get away with things to be successful within that structure or within that game. So this person will buy a $3 million condo that's 27 floors up in the sky, sometimes for the view and sometimes for the prestige or just for both. But these people, if you speak with them, and I have on many occasions, you will understand that they don't really see the value in having acres. They would much rather be inside of a cubicle that's inside of a box that's inside of a maze with a whole lot of rats instead of being a horse out in the countryside just running around.
Look, that was the one thing that the point I was making about the freedom part is that when you came to America, you were able to have your own land.
Okay,
That's what made America
stop right there.
special.
Stop right there. You're talking about manifest destiny. Manifest destiny has three parts.
Yes.
The three parts of it, a manifest destiny, are number one, this ideology that the people who are participating in this land grab are unique and special to American culture and the institutions. And then the second part is the mission of the United States to redeem and make the West in an image that is similar to the farmlands of Europe or the rural countryside of Europe. And then the third part is this irresistible urge to accomplish this essential duty. That right there, hold on, wait. That right there is something that is essentially European.
Well, there's a fourth one, and that's the whole self-rule. That if you acquire land, then you're in Europe. When you were a landowner, you had people serfdom, blah blah blah. But over here, if you were a landowner, you weren't really beholden to anybody, not even really the country. You were sovereign, and that's the one. That's also what made America special. Even though you were alienating the people that were already here and fucking them over.
Okay,
you said.
So pause right there. So then you have these people who show up on boats, get off the boats, get on the horses, get onto covered wagons, and start plowing across this land where there's all these domiciles, teepees, of red people. So here you are, a red person in your domicile, and then you got these white people with fire sticks coming at you, wanting to kill you and remove you from your domicile. So of course you're gonna hold your shit down. And the epigenetic part in all those Indians says, we're gonna fight these motherfuckers and we're gonna kill them because they don't want to make peace.
It's complicated because that's where the concept comes in. Because you got to remember, many Native Americans don't feel that you can own the land. So that right there means
no. But see, I'm talking about the threat to their existence.
Yeah, no. I get that. What I'm saying is that, if your concept is that you and the land are one, or nobody can own the land, then you might not fight as hard as a motherfucker that's selfish and war bearing, and you're like, well, fuck it, I can just move on. I can find some more land, and that's how that's why they fucked us over on 400 treaties and shit like that. The point being is even the fight is cultural. Even that idea is cultural, and the whole idea, the freedom is attached to it, is that back in the day, you were working for freedom. You were working to get to freedom. And what I mean by that is not just black folks going to the North or white folks coming to America, is that freedom was always the reward. So if you get enough land, say you get 200, 300, 1,000 acres, and you put a couple houses on there, you got a couple streams on there, You have freedom because you're not dependent on anybody else. Now you pay your little bit of taxes or whatever, but leave me the fuck alone. And that's the idea, is that we were acquiring freedom. Now, when they hit black folks with freedom and just as a concept, like, hey, civil rights, motherfucker, that's a whole bullshit of something that's not physically obtainable. But when you tell black people that, hey, if you get enough acres, these motherfuckers can't tell you what to do, and people really ain't gonna come on your land. They might run across in your front yard, but you can shoot at them. That's why that Second Amendment is so important. Like I said, in this society right now, when the media, which is run by the government or influenced by the government, sits there and says that the idea of success is working for another man, the idea of success is living in an apartment, and look at these lavish ass apartments, you ain't got shit to worry about. When those commercials start drowning in your head, when you don't see them advertising acres, they don't, me and you look at auctions all the time because we talk, and you'll see 200 acres or 40 acres, $200,000, shit like that. And me and you talked like, hey, bro, let's go half on this. We've been discussing that shit. That's a whole nother concept that's not being pushed out there. You don't have those commercials. Or here's a crazy part. If you watch certain networks like that RFTV, which is like rural TV, they have farm networks. They advertise shit differently. When they like, hey, white folks, come by this land and grow some crops. But when you're a black person, you see rap videos, you see talk shows, you see stuff like the Kardashians, which is off air now. But when you see these shows, it's a whole different life. Like, no, you're living in Beverly Hills. You got a nice size house, but it's not a super big house. But you're around these other people, and like you were saying earlier, you want to be around the rats because the rats are the ones running the advertising. So it seems like a good idea to be in close proximity to people. When the truth is, your nature is to get your own place and not have to obey anybody, and hopefully the people around you are family. Remember, like that's how my family is in Tennessee. It's like 40 of us living in one area. It's all acres, as all ancient land. That's what you want. But that ideal, that concept has been done away with now. It's not being pushed.
But see, that is further exacerbated by technology. And because technology is such a huge distraction, people are staring at their phones and they're chasing these tiny carrots, tiny little baby carrots that dangle in front of them. Because once they get little
bitty successes, like these small tiny successes, like playing a damn video, that's deep.
And then they see that once they get that carrot right in front of their face, there's 1,000 other carrots all around them. They're in a room of mirrors filled with carrots. It's all a distraction because they're not thinking about the land underneath their feet.
Their feet.
They're thinking. Wait, hold on. I'm going somewhere.
Man. No, you saying some deep shit.
Hold your fire. Hold your fire. The thing is, the land underneath your feet. There's two types of rights belonging to that land. There's surface rights, and there are mineral rights.
Mineral rights. Yep.
Now, surface rights are what that allows you to dig between the surface and the land for purposes such as construction or laying infrastructure. But natural resources are another ball game altogether because that is real wealth. Therefore, when you consider the fact that the land that you are on, underneath that, deep underneath that, there may be silver or gold or natural gas or oil.
Oil, yeah.
These things are minerals, mineral rights, and natural resources. If you don't own the mineral rights to your land, buddy, you don't own shit, really.
What's the point?
What's the point?
Look, you guys heard me tell the story before, so I'll tell it again. When I was in college, I went to a black school. I went to Langston. It's in Oklahoma. And one of the ladies that took care of me, she passed about 2-3 years ago, but she would always give me advice. And when you're young, you don't always get the advice. She said, Rennie, you ain't going to believe this. White folks don't know. Whenever I sell my land, I only sell the top 2 inches of topsoil. I'm like, what do you mean? She's telling me I only sell the mineral rights. So what happened is that she owns like hundreds of acres, right? And she's Native American, she's black, Native, wherever you want to call her. Her family's been out there for years. So she would sell this land for good money, but they would not read the land contracts because she's some old black lady who works in the cafeteria at Langston University. But so they buy this land, and a year later they would get set up and start pumping the oil, and she would come and give them a cease and desist notice. And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "You didn't read your land contract, did you? I only sold you the top 2 inches of topsoil." So that means that I own the mineral rights. So you need to put that oil back in. She was getting paid like $10,000 a month from Kerr McGee not to pump her oil. She was getting paid not to pump oil. So what it is that people don't even understand the mineral rights. Now, like I said, she taught me a lot. She taught me all kinds of shit. So I learned my lesson. Like when I get some land, I'm making sure I get the mineral rights. Now it's harder and harder to get mineral rights right now. It's very difficult, and the government makes it that way. But if you acquire the mineral rights, or if you decide to sell some land, only sell the top 2 inches of topsoil, because what she was telling you is they had already put land surveyors on her land illegally. Like she wasn't smart enough to know what you were doing. You know what I'm saying? So black folks recognize, Native Americans recognize that, if you decide to sell some land, only sell them top 2 inches.
In Great Britain, United Kingdom, the crown, the royal family owns the entire mineral rights of the entire kingdom.
Period.
In the United Kingdom, the entire kingdom mineral rights composite belongs to the UK, to the royal family. That means that even if you own a house in the UK, that's cool, man. You got surface, but you ain't got mineral.
Talk even deeper. People don't understand. Why is the royal family important? They're not important because they don't rule people anymore. But guess who owns the land of Great Britain? The European Union is owned by some kind of royal family. So you can't really own land over there unless you buy it from them, unless they want to give up that land. But the wealthiest landowners on earth are the royal family.
Because they've been grandfathered in, and they're not about to give their shit up. Because honestly, those are the people that built those empires. Those are the people that built up the civil systems that the countries of Europe recognize today.
Are based on. Or how about this? If you don't understand this, when you pay taxes over there, taxes are super high in these European countries, England, Scotland, Ireland, whatever. That's because part of your taxes are actually rent. You are paying rent to a landlord because they still own the land. So you might pay 25% of taxes. Well, 15% of that is rent. The rest goes to the government who runs you, but the other part goes to the queen and all her relatives. They split their money up. So even when you hear the story about the prince marrying the black chick and moving to America, he still gets a check, y'all. Don't fall for the bull.
But check this out.
It's a love story.
Coming back to America, some land developers are not required in some states to tell you about the minerals on the land that you're purchasing. They're doing this in hopes that you will not be hip or savvy to the wealth that you have just truly purchased.
That's deep. That's deep. See, the whole idea, okay, let me go back to a second, because when you were talking earlier, I was trying to put it out there, is that the idea that when you're detached from the land, then you believe dumb shit. But when you're attached to the land, you recognize the land can provide damn near everything you need. And also the other thing that you hear about white people talk about is the only true wealth is gold and minerals. But what Roscoe was telling you earlier is they put these carrots in front of you. What they're saying is that they set up these little victories. So you got a bunch of little victories that aren't really relevant in the bigger society. So if you're winning at a video game, or you're winning at you say you get a promotion at your job and you make another 22 cents an hour, and you're excited about that. You're celebrating that. And then you're not recognizing that you can also acquire wealth and you could become the boss. Bruce Lee once had a quote that celebration is victory for fools. What he's saying is that if you score a touchdown and you're celebrating, but you didn't win the game, it don't matter. Well, that philosophy actually has been flipped on its ear and given to you, where you're celebrating being part of a company, where you're celebrating being part of this bullshit, and you're not actually acquiring anything of your own. And it's done on purpose. Now, back in the day, buying a house was the American dream. Back in the day, starting a business was the American dream. They made sure they erased that from your memory on purpose.
Let me stop you for a second, because there was one last thing I wanted to say about mineral rights. So there are oil companies that practice horizontal oil drilling. If you own land and you see that oil drilling is going on around you in your area.
Next to your land. Oh, that's deep. That's deep.
You need to figure out if they are drilling horizontally into your land and using your area, your space to drill, because actually they're stealing from you. and you don't even realize it.
What my brother is explaining to you is that oil deposit is not just under one piece of land; it's under a lot of land. So they put them pipes and they pipe it sideways, and they pipe an oil off your property, even though they're not on your property. You don't realize you're being robbed. You're being robbed of everything special. The big show right now, we love to watch Gold Rush. You see that they're fighting over gold, and then they run out of land. They move to the next piece of land. What I'm saying is that you might be getting robbed and don't know it. We live here in Nebraska. There's a lot of black folks that are Native American, and I got a homegirl. She gets money from South Dakota because South Dakota has gold and oil and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what tribe she is, but again, she looks black, but she is Native, or her whatever Native ancestor they got. She's entitled, and she gets like $15,000 a year. They just send her a check, or the government will do something on their land. They got to pay the natives, and she gets a check every so often. There's a few people like that here in Omaha who are Native. Like everybody just assumes they're black, but they get a check from South Dakota because Blackfoot Indian, Black Hills, whatever the hell they are, they get a check.
Sioux Indians.
Because, okay.
Sioux Indians.
Well, see, Sioux are Nebraska, but the ones that
No. Wounded Knee is in South Dakota.
Yeah,
those are Sioux Indians.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm knowing the ones we grew up with. There's other tribes that were there.
But hold on. They weren't. But straighten it out now. Omaha and Nebraska are two Indian words. Omaha is the name of the people from upstream. Nebraska is a word that means the calm water. Now, the Omaha tribe is the people that dominate that area. So the Sioux people are the tribe from the north of there, but the Omaha are a derivative of the Sioux people. There you go.
Look, I'm just trying to tell you like this. There's a lot of black folks running around, and this whole idea that you're mixed. A lot of these folks are native to this
Everybody
land.
Mixed. Everybody mixed.
Yeah, everybody's native. But we've been talking for years since we've been doing this podcast about Native Americans. Like a lot of black folks, you're native. You were on the land to begin with. Stop giving up your rights. Look, when I say I'm African American, that's because I know my family comes from there. But there's a lot of black folks that was here before the white folks got here. So you have a claim to that land, and you got to be careful about using certain words because you don't want to give up that land. You don't want to give up your claim. But if you've been convinced that you're not native to here, you'll fuck around and surrender your power. Don't do that shit. Back to the original point. What we're saying is that when they play this game with you about this domicile where you live, or where your live doesn't matter, or where the idea is to chase some bullshit, you don't have the same love for where you live. And the prime example, look at these plenty of these black ghettos. Look at L.A., look at Chicago, look at Detroit, look at New York, where they had a bunch of black folks who didn't care about where they were. Or the first thing we talked about riots. You have these riots because you have no connection to the area. If you loved where you live and you were feeling that you were treated fair and that you had actual input into how you were being governed, you don't act a fool like that. But when you're just a constant victim, and the watchers who are watching you, the police are abusing you, and the government officials don't give a fuck about you, then of course you're gonna lash out. Now, some of these people are lashing out because it's fun. Some of these people are lashing out because more recently they're being manipulated. And don't get me wrong, cops do bad things, but I'm just trying to tell you, like, I got into it with a cop in front of my kids one time. I'm like, this is my property. I pay taxes here. Don't talk to me like that. Yeah, your kids. I'm like, okay, my kids did this. I'll discuss it with them. And then it was a black cop. He had to add like 2 cents. Like, yeah, don't do this. I'm like, you on my property? And it was so funny because the people that called the police were right behind him. And I went off on them. I said, man, you better back up 3 feet, because if you talk to me like this and you stand on my property, you just earned an ass whooping. You know what that means, don't you? I'm like, yeah, I pay taxes. I've been paying taxes here longer than you've been a cop. Fuck you. Yeah. And the same people that called that cop on me, they were like, yeah, duct tape is about to lay into him physically. I'm like, you can't stand on my property and talk to me a certain way. That's the attachment that I grew up having, to owning your land. So a lot of black folks, again, my brother just told you, when you guys start these gangs and you want to control a block, it is about money, it is about drugs, it is about this, but there's also something more primal, and that's staking your claim.
Okay.
You're trying to stake a claim.
Check this out. So a group of black women, 2 black women actually, bought a 97-acre tract of land here in Georgia.
Georgia, yep.
And 19 African American families have since bought parcels of land within that 97-acre tract.
They're starting their own community.
Now, here is the problem. It's south of here about an hour near Macon. So the problem is the white folks around there ain't too crazy about that, because you have all these city Negroes. So you got city Negroes and you got country Negroes. You got city Negroes moving down to this country ass town, to this tract of land, and some of them like putting up tents temporarily to stake their claim. This is not any different than what was done
Settlers, yes.
in the 1840s. In the 1840s with Manifest Destiny, when there was a land grab that was happening. The only problem is it's black people this time. And the way they're going about it it's PC. Okay, people have no concept of history. So therefore they see this and they get pissed off because it's not in the way that they do things. But it is the way you did things. It was just 170 years ago. So these people are having these culture clashes with these people out in the country down there. And then you have the sheriff's department out there coming to question these women and see if it's legit. These women have lawyers, and they go and tell the sheriff and the city council, this is legit. We are within our rights. We own this land. And so long as we don't do anything that is outside the bounds of the law, we are okay. So this illustrates something that's very, very important. What it did is galvanize a lot of black people on social media and awaken them into thinking about what true ownership is.
We can do the same thing also. You're inspiring people.
That's exactly right. And so it's really important that people understand what power is, what wealth is. There's some rapper, I can't think of what his name is, but he was saying he doesn't want one of these city girls. He don't want some chick that wants a $15,000 purse, because his lady said, don't buy me that purse. Give me that money and I'm going to invest in some properties.
That was Jeezy's old lady, I think.
No. It was somebody else. It was a black woman. Yeah, it was a black woman. But the point I'm making is that the things that we value, what we put value in, most of them are disposable assets. Depreciating.
It's fleeting, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
They don't hold any true wealth. But I mean, look at people that spend a whole bunch of money. They'll spend a bunch of money on fixing up a car, but they live in an apartment. I'm like, wait a minute. You ain't got no house. E40 said back, hold on. The rapper E40 said back in the day, he said, don't buy a $50,000 car before you buy a house.
Oh, that's so complicated. Okay, look, you got to remember that so much of that is cultural. I remember going to certain places, and like down south, and you would see them. We used to call them shotgun shacks. That's what my family's from the Tennessee area. It's called a shotgun shack. It's called that because you could open the front door, over the back door, shoot a shotgun and not hit nobody, because that's how small that shack is. So you would see these people in shotgun shacks with 2 or 3 new cars. Now, so that's because we were taught that cars are a form of wealth. So you want to look wealthy, but you don't want to live wealthy. And that's a concept. That's something that's been thrust upon you, especially when you're not allowed to actually own anything. Or, and when you talk about terrorism, you always think about these motherfuckers overseas, but the first homegrown terrorism place is what? Terrorism is the Ku Klux Klan 200 years ago, 175 years ago, when they were fucking with slaves, because they were running people off their land. They were killing people for their land. They were doing all this shit to get, and you don't understand that this always was.
No. Go back further. Christopher Columbus is the first terrorist.
Yes, my brother. I was trying to just make it plain that it was still about running people off their land. Going back to Christopher Columbus, it's about running people off the land. And when people don't realize that we use the word terrorism out of context. Remember, when it's a terroristic threat, when it's a terrorist attack, there's always a demand. Just because you don't recognize what the demand is, but for it to be terrorism, there must be a demand. Blowing up a building ain't terrorism. blowing up a building and wanting America to get out your country, that is a demand. So when these motherfucking terrorists who are trying to say that they own the land and black folks are bad, they're full of shit. But it's always about the land. So you got a lot of black folks that were run off their land. They had their patents stole from them. They had their ideas stole from them, and so that you're still afraid of that. But the truth of the matter is, we were already over here. We were fighting. And when you hear stories about, like Condoleezza Rice talks about her grandfather and her father being preachers, and they all got together and they defended their black town. So the reason you don't hear those stories is because they don't want to inspire. They don't want you to be inspired to do that shit right now. But when you read her book, she talks about all the deacons, all these church folks got together with their shotguns and their grease guns and their old guns, because most of them also fought in the military, and they protected their town. They parked a truck, 2 trucks at one end, 2 trucks at the other end, and if them white folks came, see, white folks knew what towns to fuck with. That's something that you don't hear. They only fuck with certain towns, or they fuck with people they knew they could fuck with, but they didn't want no even fight. So it's important when you're defending your land. That's why when you hear the Second Amendment stuff and they push Biden and Kamala Harris down your throat, the first thing out their mouth is they want to buy back your guns. Don't fall for that shit. Let me explain something to you. Just because they won doesn't mean we agree with their concept. We voted to get Trump out. We didn't vote because we liked y'all. So stop getting that shit confused. We don't agree with your shit. That's why it's important that you vote different on local level and Senate level, blah, blah, blah. But the idea of defending your property and having your ability to defend your property is some shit that has been lost on us for a long time. And it's been bred out of you, beat out of you, and then mentally coaxed out of you through videos and TV. And we see Martin Luther King marching, but y'all forget Martin Luther King had the Deacons for Defense. He had motherfuckers that had y'all don't read that part. They don't put that part in when we're in second grade learning about Martin Luther King and his marching. They don't tell you they were black men with guns in front of them, the Deacons for Defense. There's 2 Black Panthers. We talk about this again, Black Panther Party and the Black Panthers. All these black vets were protecting Martin Luther King. So that's why when he went up north to Cicero, Illinois, it was different, because he thought he didn't need that protection. You need protection.
He found that out the hard way. But check this out. People who live in apartments often get out of that apartment life and move into a house in a subdivision to only find themselves back in an apartment scenario. You are in an apartment scenario still, but it's expanded. Your domicile has expanded, so you don't have people above you, but you still have people on the side of you. And you still have somebody at the leasing office / HOA, Homeowners Association,
dude, say, hey,
telling you about all these rules, telling you about what you can build, what kind of truck you can have parked. I've heard the most ridiculous shit. I've heard you can't have a moving truck parked in front of your house overnight. That is ridiculous. These people don't understand that you got to go and rent a moving truck so you can pack it up and load it so that in the morning you can just vamp out. So what you have is
you can't do that there. You can't do that there.
Yeah, you can't do this. You can't do this. To the left, to the right, up, faster, down. Yeah, fuck off. What I'm telling you is that these people who get used to being told what to do, with this lack of freedom, with this limited, tiny chokehold of existence in an apartment complex, only face that when you move into a house that's within a subdivision. What are you doing? Why do you want more control? Why do you want the same amount of control that you had when you was in that tiny ass box? Now you got a house. Hey, go ahead.
No, you're saying some deep shit. I'm saying if you ever notice where the conflict comes in, I work with a bunch of the guys I work with do that. They think they're making it, so that they move into the suburbs and they get $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 house. And one of my homeboys is like, hey, man, shoot, duct tape, you ain't gonna believe this, man. So I buy this house, big ass driveway, and I put my he doesn't have a camper. He has one of these big mobile homes.
RV.
Yeah, super big RV. He said, man, because the neighborhood association, I can't have my RV there. His other brother, he's like, man, I had to put my dogs down. So why you gotta put your dogs down? He said, man, you only can have 2 dogs, and I had 6 pits. I got this big old house in the suburb in Texas, so I'm gonna put a thing in the backyard like Snoop Dogg and have my dog. They're like, nah. And so I try to give the dogs to my family, but didn't nobody want them, and I had to put my dogs, like literally these home associations. The idea is this, that you care so much more about image than actual freedom and happiness.
There it is.
And you spend all this money. You think you spend more money. You're
not doing your due diligence. You're not doing your homework.
No. Because you think, okay, all you think is that they care about the color of the mailbox. You think they care about you cutting your grass. That's what that shit's supposed to be in
But
your head.
it does. But this is middle class homes. Middle class homes are not the only ones that I'm talking about. I'm talking about these $1 million homes that are in gated communities as well. So I just spent
Yeah.
$5 million in the house, and you gonna tell me what I can do in front of my house, in my backyard, what kind of guests I can have? Nah, man, nah.
Hey, I remember we were kids, and that was a big deal with Mr. T because I remember he bought his place in California, Hollywood, wherever he bought, and he started cutting out these trees, and his neighbors got mad. And he's like, they didn't have a neighborhood association, so they were trying to petition and call the city, and so he's like, I'm Mr. T, motherfucker. Fuck you. These my trees. I do what I want with them. I pay the food that come on my property. And what people don't get that is that when we were growing up and we knew that we were eventually buy a house and do this, that we had already had it in our head that when I get my own shit, I'll be able to do what I want and I won't be disturbed. Now motherfuckers want to disturb you. And I'm like, but we've already been conditioned that the disturbing is right. And another thing that you brought up earlier about the women down in Georgia buying that land is that you get these lawyers telling they're well within their rights, they're within the law. Don't forget this, people. Being legal or being a law does not mean moral or right.
Oh,
it just
boy,
means
say that. Preach.
So when you sit here and tell me that slavery was legal, what white folks are trying to tell you is that slavery was okay. Legal and right ain't the same thing.
Pedophilia was legal in Greece.
It's legal in some places. Preach. Come on.
You know, I mean, these things that
Legal does not mean
you
right.
take for granted and you just accept it. You know, let me back up a little bit here. I had a brief conversation with somebody about the election, and I had the same conversation. We talked about how California is now locking down for another 30 days. In New York, crazy part, they tried to do it, but the cops in New York said, no, we're not going to enforce that bullshit. And this whole idea about, you want to restrict people from having Thanksgiving, we're not going to reinforce that either. We're not going to enforce that. I thought that was actually pretty cool of the cops to say that. But hold on. But let me
brotherhood though. That's unity. They got unity.
But dig this. So this person, their response is, "Oh, that's life." No, that is not life. I said no. I said, remember, we the people decide how we're going to live and what we will let our politicians do. Don't forget that, because this person was so easy. He gave such a quick knee-jerk reaction to, I'm just going to submit. Really? That's all it took. Like, well, they said that's it. No. See,
who the fuck is they? Who are they?
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. A lot of these black people that you are seeing voted for Trump and voted Republican, this is the thing with these people. Some of them may be sellouts, 100%. Others are people who are having this slow awakening. They're waking up out of a sleep, sitting on the edge of their bed, and they're seeing people in their front yard stealing shit. They're seeing people in their front yard putting up a fence around them. They're seeing their rights being taken away. So they're wanting. So what they're doing is they wanted to vote for the opposition in hopes of getting a different response from what they've been used to. So these people that I've just talked about they're not going to go away. They're going to grow in number. So these two political parties who don't give a shit about them, let's be clear, who don't give a shit about them, will do whatever it takes to get their vote. But what is happening is that those people are getting tired. And those are the people that you are seeing that are having regular conversations without their face diaper on, their mask, in their front yard, in their home. Man, I've been doing work for people, and like my job takes me to their homes to like work in their homes sometimes, and I'll come in wearing my mask, and these people will say, "You can take that off, you cool," and I just laugh. I said, "Oh, this is a safe space." They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, so we're free breathers here?" They're like, "Yeah," and it's so funny. They're like, the jig is up, man. Like, we ain't gotta dance that silly dance no more. Like it's okay, you know.
Here's a problem. Here's a problem that me and you talk about off the air, but I think we said it on the air a couple times. Black people, or just people in general now, are more worried about sounding smart than being smart.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you try to have an intelligent conversation, they don't always bring any intelligence to the conversation. They just bring what they saw in the news. And so when it comes to this mask conversation, we do your research. There's three things. First things first, the mask stops you from putting spit in the air. That's what this is about.
Hold
So
up.
if you call for
Real quick. How about these motherfuckers wearing two masks? Now,
oh my god,
hold up.
what the fuck?
These people that are wearing two masks, I bet you they fuck without a rubber. Anyway, go ahead.
Hey, dude, hey, you see that shit, the Facebook memes. Okay, you wear a mask, but then you was eating ass like 20 minutes ago.
Yo,
like, stop acting like y'all motherfuckers get this shit.
Oh, that's
stop
gross.
acting like you're a fucking scientist because CNN told you some bullshit. Look, first thing, what I was trying to say is that a mask stops you from putting the spit particles in the air, spreading the disease, because the disease is more airborne. Even Fauci admits that you can barely get it from touch. If it's on a surface, this disease ain't that strong. It is a 98.3% chance you will not get it from the surface.
That's about as silly as a person that says they don't kiss, but they'll eat ass. What?
All the freaking time. Hey, man, look. I mean, here, I'm jaded because my life is fucked up, and I'll be sharing this shit with y'all. So my homeboy knows I was like a virgin for years, but I started getting my dick sucked at 14, 15. So I was getting my dick sucked, but I wasn't actually because I'm like, I don't want no kids. I don't trust these rubbers. So I'm like, so you sit here and people are having oral sex earlier and earlier. So all of a sudden you got these people in public who are saying, I don't do this or this. Fuck, I wear a mask because I believe in safety. Man, you was just. You got girls. Okay. This is off subject. Do you know what these young dudes are doing now to avoid paying child support?
What?
There's a hustle. So the different society. So these guys, when they go down to do the DNA test, they do a cotton swab inside your mouth, right? What do you think these guys are doing to eliminate that or to mess up the cotton swab?
Spitting on it? I don't know.
You have young men sucking other men's dick.
Oh, get the fuck out of here with that, dog.
So you mean to tell me this is the same motherfucker wearing a mask, but you were willing to let a man ejaculate in your mouth just so you can fuck up the cotton swab? Dude, it's real. I'm reading this shit, and then if you talk to a young dude, like, yeah, man, ain't no big deal. That ain't no big deal.
Punch that dude in his face. Punch him in his fucking face. Because, you know what, man? Just cut his balls off. You ain't no man no more. Don't reproduce.
Ain't no big deal.
Don't reproduce.
Okay, I digress. Back to what I was saying. People do unhealthy, nasty shit all the fucking time, and all of a sudden, these are the same motherfucker wearing masks. Or that kind of shit. The point I was trying to make, scientifically, this disease ain't the big bad thing you think it is. Second, wearing a mask only stops you from giving it to people or spreading, and that only lowers it by 30, 40%. It's not 100%. Second, if this is a virus, as they say, now if this was bacteria, a mask would stop bacteria because a bacteria is much larger than a virus, but this is supposed to be a virus. So if you're wearing a mask, somebody sneezes in the area, if any of that shit gets on your mask, it will go through it because it's so small. Now, like I said, I'm a decent person, so if I gotta wear a mask, I don't wear a mask outside. Now, if I was at a football game, I probably would wear a mask. But if I'm just walking from my car to my house, I ain't got no mask.
But your car is an extension of your domicile.
But you know what? Down south, they push that a lot more down south than they do up north. Down south, they consider it an extension of your house. That's why you can carry your gun in the car down south. But you get up north, they're like, no, a car's possession is not a part of your domicile because they don't want you to carry your weapon. But down south, if you got to consider
it's so stupid that it's considered different in the north. It really is, because down south you're right. You're absolutely right. It is an extension of your domicile.
And so, but what they're telling you is that you have the right to defend your vehicle as you would your house. What they're saying is that you always hear the brothers down south, let me go to my car, because they're allowed to have a weapon in their car. But you get to Chicago, you get to New York, no, your car is a possession and it's not part of your domicile, and you can't have a weapon in your car. So that's what that argument is, and people don't understand that. That's also something that happens on a state level when you go from different states to different states. So here's what let me put this plain.
Wait a minute.
If you go
Wait a
out,
minute. Wait a minute. What if it's an RV? That's a mobile home. See, that's a
but
gray area.
no, it's not going to be a gray area because what they're going to tell you is your RV is registered someplace. If you have it registered as your home and you don't have a home, you might be able to get away with it. But if you got an RV and you got an address that's attached to that, they're going to say, well, that's your actual address. Here's the point I was going to make is that a lot of people, they save their money and they move to California because they want to retire there. But now you see more and more people retiring to Florida because Florida is the South. You got no state tax. You got a lot more freedom. And so they're like, well, I can have the palm trees and the nice weather, but I can actually have some freedom. Why do you think people are going to Florida? What I'm saying is when you decide to make this move and you saved your money and you're retiring, you got your 401k, you got $500,000, you need to be thinking about where you're going, and you need to go someplace where you got freedom. Going west to Cali ain't the same. Going west to Oregon, you see what these motherfuckers are doing up there. So you really need to recognize that state laws matter. What are the state laws in that area, and how do they affect you? Are there going to be protesters on your property? Because I'm trying to tell you, if you come on my property, I'd have been out there with an AR also. Just so y'all know, I recently sold my house, but if there was a protester coming down my street, I'd have been out there. I wouldn't have pointed the gun at nobody, but I would have made it known.
But you've had issues with your private property being violated living in an apartment.
In an apartment, yeah.
Some of the biggest headaches that you have suffered in your adult life has been from living in that fucking apartment.
You can't defend it. Again,
you can't.
That's one of our.
See, because everything is remotely. You have to secure your property, your car remotely from your home, because you can't physically see your car. When you're in a house, open the window, move the shades. Yeah, the car's still there. We good. Go back. Let's go eat some dinner. But in that apartment, how many times, just be straight up with me, how many times did you jump up and go and check your car?
Oh, never. You mean back in my house?
No, not in the house. I'm talking about in that apartment. Ever since motherfuckers started breaking into your shit.
Look, okay. My car's been broken in 2 times. I've had 2 weapons stolen from me.
And you park it in a parking garage.
Yeah.
On like a floor that's like, not on the first floor, like you're up in the air.
Yeah. I had all my vehicles on one floor. I had 3 vehicles. My wife has a vehicle also. So I actually had 5 vehicles at the time. And I was paying for parking. It's locked to get in here. These kids from the local high school were getting in, and I got robbed. And then a short time later, I got robbed again. They stole 2 weapons from me, 2 guns. They stole a .45 ACP, and they stole one of my judges. So I was pissed about that. And it's really, I don't jump up and go check. I just like, fuck it. I don't keep any weapons out there anymore. But I had a concealed carry, and so what I always did, I've had a gun in every car. Living in an apartment. When I was in my own house, it was no big deal to walk outside with a gun on you. But when you live in an apartment, people don't want to see that shit, and they act funny, and they gasp, or they hold their pearls. Or like the other day, I was getting on the elevator, and it was a dude and 2 chicks. Now he was probably trying to get something, but he sees me and my wife get on, and I'm holding my gun in my hand, and he wanted to get on the elevator because you could tell he wanted to ask me a question. But the chicks were like, He's like, oh damn, I don't want to blow this pussy.
That man's dangerous. That's a bad man.
Yeah, and so he didn't want to blow his pussy. It's COVID, so back in the day.
But it's crazy. But you saw that reaction. The guy was excited to see the gun. The women were afraid.
He keyed off on what was in my hand. He wasn't scared. He's more curious. Like, you just walk around like that? Come on, son. let a real man show you how it's But what happened was you could tell the chicks didn't. I don't know if they saw the gun or not. But they were definitely like, don't get on the elevator, whether it was COVID or the fact that they saw the gun. They're like, we don't like, know this mother.
You and your wife are going to rob them motherfuckers?
We live in the same building. Everything's locked up for us to even get in here. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, that's the dichotomy of being Black in America. Like one of my early experiences, when you first start working in corporate America, and we dealt with it when we was in high school, but it was worth. Like you're in a parking garage, you're going to work, White people are all happy. They're going to work too, but then they see you, and all of a sudden they turn around and doop, doop, they lock the car door. And I'm like,
Really?
motherfucker.
Oh, I see
I'm a
that
crime
all the time.
reminder.
I see that in parking lots all the time. I see. Look,
And
I'm
I'm like,
walking. I'm walking in a certain direction through the parking lot, and if like a white woman is in my line of sight, she will open the car door so fucking fast and jump in there like I'm Dracula swooping down to suck her blood. I'm like, for
dude,
real?
oh
Really?
my God. Look, you guys were all good. You weren't even thinking about locking your car. Or you wanted me to see that you locked your car so I wouldn't go back out there and steal some. It's like, you know what? It's niggers about. You know, he's a good nigger. He works with me, but I'm sure there's other niggers about. I'm a crime reminder. I reminded them of that. You know
Crime
what I'm saying?
reminder.
Look, like the reason it hurt because, like I said, this is early on. I'm graduating college. I'm working for a Fortune 500 company. I got my degree. I got all the stuff that I was told to get to be a good black person. And you still see me as, oh damn, he
He's that
reminded
guy.
me there's niggers out here.
He's that guy.
Yeah. Or going back to your situation, again, I'm not a big fan of D.L. Hughley, but he said the most dangerous place for a black man is a black person is in the mind of a white person.
Yeah.
So when they sit there and see you and they're like, I remember being in Oklahoma and I was driving through a suburb one time, and you'll be next to somebody and they look over at you and then they'll lock their car door. I'm like, I can't drive both cars, bitch. I'm gonna pick you up, drive your car down a block, come back, get my car, drive my car 2 blocks, come back, get your car, drive your car 2 blocks. I can't get away. I can't steal both cars if I'm in a car also. But I'm like, we're and I'm thinking to myself, it's like, so I'm gonna rape you and drive. I'm gonna fuck her and drive off. Ha ha ha. Fuck cars. I mean, what the fuck? And so, again, you know, back to the original statement. They sit here and they present you in a negative way, and then you start. They're presenting you to everybody that way, but then you start eating the shit and start believing this shit. Like, okay, I can never have nothing, or the car, and that's why black people buy cars because you can own a car. So you got people buying cars and financing cars. I remember one of the big things that we ran into growing up is that you got all these black people said, I don't want a student loan, but they would go out and get a loan for a car. I'm like, let me get this straight. So you can get this education they can never take from you. But then you go buy a car that depreciates in value and you'll never pay it off. They'll repossess it. And then you'll be at a buy here, pay here place 5 days later. So it made me think that, okay, so I spent $27,000 on my education, but then you got people spending $50,000, $60,000 on a car that they'll never have so they can look rich. I remember I get paid a lot of money at my regular job, and I would get a part-time job, and these black chicks would find out how much I made, and they're like, so you don't have an Escalade? Like, why would I have an Escalade? I got a rental property. I own my house. I got to take care. You got more than one house? Like, yeah, but I don't have more than one Escalade. You're stupid.
I want to cover one last thing in regard to domiciles. Law enforcement. When you're in an apartment, they can run up in there, kick in that front door anytime. And then hold up. Then throw a ignorant person or a chicken head into that mix. Oh, I'll call the cops on your ass. That means you are living under constant threat of all times, not only from the person that you dwell with, but also from law enforcement. Now, that starts to recede and go back as you get into your own spaces. Now, when you're in a condo, they still got to knock. But when it is on your house, when you have dirt, when you own dirt, and you own the building on that dirt.
They even got to ask to come on that motherfucker. You know, probable cause. You hear these terms, you need to understand how they really apply to you in the real world. Mm-hmm. They can't come on your property if you own that dirt, my nigga.
That's right.
If you own that dirt, my nigga.
When you own the dirt, they have to act much more cautiously. So you have to understand what we're really talking about here. You're buying freedom. You're buying providence. You're buying a way of living that separates you from everybody else who's being trampled upon.
Including the government. They can't tell you what to do on your own shit. Now, if these Democrats have their way, be careful. But, hey, there's something else that you just brought up. Like, okay, there's rules to this shit. So what's the number one rule when you're living in an apartment and you're dealing with white people? The number one rule, you call the police. If you're a black person and you let a white person call the police on you, you're gonna get fucked up. But
Oh yeah.
if you're a black person and you're dealing with white people, you arguing, I live in an apartment, I'll call the police myself. Fuck snitching. I'm like, officer, I've never seen
No. It's not snitching when it comes to when it's black on black, that's snitching. But like when it's
Yes,
a black and
black
like
on white,
anything else, nah.
it's called self-preservation.
It's called mediation.
Because if they call the cop on you, them cops come with guns, and they'll see it's a black person acting a fool.
Oh,
So,
where's the
yeah,
nigger? God dang it. You called us? Okay, all right.
I'm scared. Pa 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 pa. Is he okay?
Yeah.
It's a cell phone? Oh, fuck. It had his wiener in his hand. I thought it was a gun. The whole thing is that you want to take charge of that situation. And if you're having a conflict with your neighbors and you're black and they're white and you're living in an apartment, you need to be the ones to call the police first. Now, when you own your property, I had several confrontations with my neighbors. I didn't give a fuck. I didn't give a fuck. And they would tell the police, hey, man, he's cleaning his gun on his back porch. Like, okay. Nigga said, this is back porch.
So, wait. Hey, you never tell me about this shit. So they called the cops on you because you were sitting on your back porch cleaning your weapon.
No, I was cleaning my weapon when they I knew they were going to call the cops, so I went out there and started cleaning my weapon on purpose. I don't normally clean my guns on my back porch, but since I knew they were about to call the police, I made it clear, like, I'm gonna give you a reason to call. Go ahead and call and tell them what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because I've not done anything illegal. I've not done anything worth it. Now, like I told you, I did have bad children, and they caused a situation a couple times. But even then, if you're on my property, I told you the story. They tried to repossess my truck one time. I was behind. Shit got bad. That's what it is. And so I get off work late at night. It's 11:30, and I see a tow truck go through my alley. I'm like, oh shit! I wonder if they're here for me. I say it jokingly, and dude pulls up in my driveway backwards. He's like, hey. And I gotta repossess your truck. I'm like, look, dude, I'm only a couple weeks behind. I'll take care of it. I got the cash. In fact, I just got paid. I'll take care of it. And the guy goes, he said, man, look, I'm a hard worker. If I go back without the truck, my boss might fire me. I said, man, I don't want you fired, but you do realize you're on my property. So if you don't get off my property, I'm gonna shoot you. He's like, okay, cool, I'll go. I'm like, you're on my. If you catch me slipping in the street, you want to repossess my shit, go right ahead. But if you coming on my property, man, so I hid the truck at my mama's house until I paid it a couple days later. You can't come on my property and take my shit. I own this. If I was on the street, do what you want. But if you got to come up on my property to even correct my behavior, then you ain't correcting my behavior. You understand that? Because I own this shit. I've been here 20-something years. I own everything around this motherfucker. Like, so you got to understand, when they removed the dirt and the city was doing they're like, hey, Mr. Morrow, we need your permission. Yes, you need my permission just to breathe my motherfucking air. And that ain't changing. So, but until black folks get that idea, until we recognize that, till America gets back to what I'm not trying to say, the Trump manga shit, whatever, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is recognize that we've given up rights. And, white folks always knew about the rights, so they're the main ones hooping and hollering. But you got to understand that we gave up our rights. Take your rights back, act like a human being, and get your own property and get your own air. And you'll be a lot happier, a lot safer, and you'll have something to give to your children, and you'll have a legacy. Love y'all. Hit me back later.
So in closing, I want to say that you need to educate yourself on what you can buy with your money in regard to land. Explore your options. And there are many out there. But you also have to understand that if you are not in a situation to purchase property right away, make steps to move in that direction. Educate yourself. That's the first way. And then start putting a nest egg away so that you can do that and stop investing your money in foolish things that don't give you a return. So,
you know what? Hold on. Hold on, Roscoe. You want to say some deep shit. We all these dumbass sayings that says money can't buy happiness. Those are always poor people saying that shit. Go buy your own land. When you're buying your own land, you're buying your freedom. And whether you're happy or not on your own land, you can be depressed on your own shit. But get your own shit. All these little sayings, these are rich people giving you these, money can't buy happiness. They're fucking with you. Stop letting people fuck with you.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, as I was saying, if you are not in a position to move right away onto a piece of land, or even buy a house that is not in a subdivision, make sure you educate yourself on the rules of how you can exist where you are right now without being thrown in jail, without having to pay excessive fees, Understand the power and the authority of the leasing office or the homeowners association. Make sure you understand all of these carefully so that you can protect yourself, because your domicile is yours and you are the king or the queen of that castle. So therefore, arm yourself with knowledge so that you can act accordingly. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla.